Hello everyone and welcome to this master. Probably you have started with other subjects and I want to introduce myself and to introduce this subject of Inglés Avanzado, of Master de Secundaria. In this group, in your group, I'm going to be your teacher. My name is Lourdes Pomposo. You can have some information about who I am in your Blackboard campus, okay? And as you know, in most of the subjects of this master, you have a pre-class of about 20 minutes, half an hour, that we introduce or we explain what is the unit about. And you have some theory, you have some theory of all the grammar and all the readings that you're going to see in the unit. And you must see the pre-class before our video class. Every day that we have the video class, okay? So if you cannot see the pre-class, because most of you cannot attend to the video classes that we have, never mind, but in all the presentations, at the end of each presentation, I have a slide with some exercises that you should do, and you should upload to Blackboard to check that you have seen the class, okay? So these exercises are not going to be evaluated, but it's going to be very positive for me to see if to check if you have seen the pre-class, okay? So in this subject, well, you have a presentation in the Blackboard about what the subject is about, and you have a lot of things that are going to be evaluated. When we connect in the video class, what you have to do is a microphone, because you should speak to me in the video classes. You have to do exercises and you have to upload them into the Blackboard platform. And apart from that, you will have some listenings, but I cannot evaluate your listening, but sometimes you have to answer to some questions, okay? You have reading exercises, and this is very important because in the exam you will be asked about the vocabulary that you have in each unit, okay? So you have reading and you have to do the exercises and you have to upload them to Blackboard. So if you have problems with English, I recommend you to have some reinforcement classes or something like that, because this is an important subject and you have to know how to speak, how to listen, how to write and how to read, okay? In each unit, like this one, we have some grammar points and some topic related to education. In this case, in this unit, you have British and USA education. It's a reading that you have. I will explain what you have to do with each reading. And apart from that, you have some grammar, okay? In all the exams and controls that we have in this subject, you have to have a good control of grammar, so please pay attention to it, and if you have some questions, write them down on paper, and you will ask me when we have the class, okay? So these are the contents of the unit. British and USA secondary education. Normally you have to read before the class, you have to read the text, because sometimes in our face-to-face class I'm going to ask you things about the unit, about the text, and you have to answer. And we have a short debate about the topics that you read in the text. Okay, in this one, for example, you have secondary education in these two countries, and you should compare it to Spanish education. Spanish education reading is in the second unit, but anyway, we can advance something of Spanish education, and I see what you think about everything, okay? In each unit you have a forum, okay? So you have a forum and you have to participate in it, because you know, as you have seen in the evaluation system, you have a percentage for the forum and you should participate. For example, if we have 6 forums, different forums, you should participate at least in 5, okay, 4 or 5 forums, and we will, this is not an evaluation, this is not an evaluation of how you write, but how you participate. In this participation, please don't do I agree with you, but you have to give your opinion in a long text of more than 4 or 5 lines, okay? In this one, you have this opinion about Spanish education or USA and British education, and apart from that, you have some grammar points. This unit is about modals, modal verbs. Probably you remember the modals, or most of the modals you remember are can or must or should. Why are they called modals? They are called modals because, for example, go, the verb go, if you put I must go, I can go, I will go, I should go, every time you put a modal, it changes completely the meaning of the intention of the verb. Okay? But some units of like this one, we assume that you know the use of modals, but this could be a good review for the people who know grammar, remember grammar, but they need to remember it like you. Okay. For the written text, you have a text that I will upload now, so you will have it for the first class we have. What you have to do with each text is to understand the vocabulary that is underlined or in bold. I don't know if you know the meaning of in bold. In bold is negrita. So all the words that you see in your text, you should write it down or make a list, because you need a glossary that you explain the meaning of each one, because we will always ask you vocabulary. So we make you study the vocabulary, okay? So you will be able to explain the meaning in English. It's very difficult to explain in English. It's more difficult than translate. So what you should do is translate and explain the meaning in English, because I may ask you in our class, next class, in video class, what is the meaning of something that you have found in the text, okay? So read the text in general, take notes if you need it, take the main meaning of the text, okay, and be able to be ready to speak about that in our next class, okay? I recommend you, I recommend it every year to prepare your own glossary in an Excel document, for example, with all the words and the translation, and if you want an explanation in English, because in the exam, for example, we ask you for translation or explanation in English, okay? If you have any question anyway, you ask me in our first class, okay? Well, what are the modals? As I told you, there are verbs that you put before any other verb, and there are many expressions of modals or meanings of modals that express probability of permission, obligation, or advice. These are the modals that I hope you remember them: can and could, may, might, will, ought to, should, shall, must, and would. Probably you remember all of them, but anyway, I'm going to remind you the use of modals. So the main characteristics that you have are auxiliary verbs, so they help another verb that they go together. They express attitude toward events, so mode. I like to call it mode, not attitudes. For example, if it expressing a feature or ability, etc. Okay. So you have ability, obligation, probability, permission, and necessity. This presentation that I'm showing you now will be uploaded to your Blackboard too. So in case you need to read it with more time, you can do it, because probably I'm going too fast for you. So these things that you have here with the main characteristics of the modals are very important, because if you make mistakes in writing with these characteristics that I want you to remember, probably it's a big mistake in a composition, okay, and you will be evaluated with a composition with less mark than you expect. For example, they don't use an S. Probably some things are very obvious for you, but sometimes we are writing very fast and you make a mistake and you don't pay attention to it. So they don't use an S for the third person singular. Sometimes I say he cans, and this is a very big mistake. They make questions by inversion, like the verb to be. Can you go? No, do you can go. Sometimes I say do you can go. And they don't need any auxiliary verb. So this means that if you have, for example, can, podré, you cannot say I will can, because there are two auxiliaries together. It's impossible to find it in English. So what you have to do is to put will be able, not will can, okay? As other auxiliary verbs, you can make questions, you can make negations, you can, you can't, and this is very important that they are followed by an infinitive, but This infinitive cannot have to. You say, I can to go, because you try to translate it from Spanish, and you say, puedo ir, and you put can to go. But can to go is a very big mistake, so try to avoid it, okay? And as I said before, they don't have forms of future or present perfect or past perfect. For example, if you say he podido, you cannot say I have can, okay? So it's I have been able. Anyway, as I told you before, write down all the questions that you have or the doubts, and we can solve them out in our class, okay? And they don't have a gerund, so probably all these things are very obvious for you, okay? There are some modals that express probability or permission. For example, this one with can. Something is possible, somebody has ability to do something. We use can and infinitive. We can see the lake from a bedroom. Can you speak any foreign languages? So if you see the second example, it's an ability. It's an ability. Can you swim? Can you speak? Can you play the guitar? Okay. And the other one is just it's a possibility. I can see something from my window. Okay. Permission is used to for can I go to the toilet, but as we will see later on, may is very used for permission too. Be careful with this one, be able to, because when you say in Spanish yo he podido, is I have been able, and when you say podré, I will be able, you cannot say I will can, okay? But sometimes it's just an ability that you have. You can substitute be able to by can, okay? For example, I haven't been able to sleep recently, or I couldn't, or I haven't been able. It's a substitution of can, but in this case you cannot put it because it's a present perfect. So, but sometimes you can substitute it, okay? Could is in the past. And sometimes it's a polite request. Could you give me that? Okay, it's just for permission, but in a very polite way. Okay, and it's in the past. For example, we were completely free. We could do what we wanted. Okay, so it's in the past. Now we have in some cases in English you can use both, or you can use several modals depending on the context. Sometimes in our exercises, in our grammar exercises, it's very difficult to make a difference of which tense we should use, okay? For example, in may and might, that probably you can find one or the other one. So if you put may or might, it doesn't change very much the meaning. Both of them are to express a possibility. You can say it may rain tomorrow, or it might rain tomorrow, and you can ask, and what is the difference? Well, the difference is very, very slight. Might is less probable that happened, and may is more probable, or it could be used to polite request, okay, but very similar. For example, it may be true, or it might be true, perhaps it's true. So they have a very, very similar meaning, so don't worry about that. If you put one or the other one, don't worry, because it's not a mistake to avoid one. The verb, the negative form of can, as you can see here, is can't, or sometimes you see it cannot, all together with double N, okay? For example, can I attend the meeting with you? No, I can't, or no, I cannot. So anyway, to just take your time to read this presentation. In the presentation we have in class, when we see it again, it's a mixture of these slides and the exercises that we have to do in class, okay? So you have this repeated. Must and have to is an obligation. Probably you know that, okay? You know that, and sometimes you ask what is more obligation, must or have to? Well, it's more or less the same obligation. Must is probably stronger, but it's similar. But in grammar books, normally they put this different, okay? Must is personal, something that you have to do and you know it. And have to is impersonal, probably is more about facts, something that happened and not your personal view. For example, listen to these examples that you have in the chart. If you see it on the left, I must get up early tomorrow. There are a lot of things I want to do. It's an obligation, but it's more personal. Okay, if I don't get up early, I will not do those things. And on the other hand, I have to get up early tomorrow. I'm going away in my train that leaves at 10. Is that if I don't get up, something will happen. So it has a consequence. So I hope you see the difference between the obligation and one obligation and the other one. Probably is more related to the person than the real obligation. For example, have to is an obligation here, but in these cases I have to stop smoking. It means that my obligation is not as strong as must. So in this case is something slight, okay? It's what you said in Spanish, tengo que hacer algo, but you never do it. Tengo que perder peso, tengo que, so I have to. It's an obligation, not a real obligation, but it's something that you know that you have to do for your health or for your good things, okay? But if you pay attention, if you see it in negative, it's different. So mustn't and don't have to is not an obligation. It's something that you don't need to do. Tú no tienes que hacer algo. It's not an obligation that you shouldn't do. For example, we mustn't do something. So it is necessary that you do not do it. So don't do it. You mustn't do something means don't do it. But you don't have to do something is that it's not necessary. You must keep it a secret, or you can tell me if you want, but you don't have to tell me. So if you see, don't confuse this. So the negative of mustn't is not don't have to, okay? More modals, should and ought to. Both of them are used to advise, aconsejar, to advise something. You look tired, you should go to bed, okay? And ought to is used to for advice or to tell someone what they should do, but it's not very used. Probably you have never seen ought to in a colloquial conversation, but be careful because ought to is the only modal that has to. Do you remember that I said before that you shouldn't put to in any modal? This is the only exception, okay? So ought to. You have explanations here. I don't know if you have, I think, yes, I have ought to in another slide. For example, you should apologize. So it could be a good thing to do for apologize, or you must apologize. You have no alternative, okay? So if we compare should or must here is something that you have to do, not an advice. So to say what we expect something to happen, she's been studying hard, she should pass. Ha estudiado, debería aprobar. So it's something that you expect, but it's not an advice. When something is not what we expect, I wonder where Liz is. She should be here. Debería estar aquí. Okay. So this is not an advice either. You can use ought to instead of should, as I told you, but it's more common to use should. Okay. So as you can see in these examples, you ought to tell me the truth. You should tell me the truth. I repeat. Be careful with this modal with ought to. Okay. Sometimes in the exams of multiple choice, it's not our case. Well, yes, at the final exam you have multiple choice and you have a gap that you have to put a modal in. Be careful because if in the sentence is to, what you have to put it ought to, not any other modal. So be careful with this one. I will repeat this in our video class. Shall. Some students ask me, what happens if I don't use shall? Nothing. Shall is used more for the future, okay? But if you don't use shall, nothing happens. when you mean future, because shall could be suggestions. For example, shall we go to the cinema? Or like the example I have here, shall I open the window? What shall I do? ¿Qué debo hacer? Okay, shall we go? Vamos? So it's a suggestion. And shall is also used for the first person plural, okay, or singular for the future. Okay, I shall do it. It's the same, I will do it, or I shall do it. It's the same, exactly the same, but shall is more used for the first person. Okay. Here you have some slides that is not for you to answer by written, but they are to answer or to have a reflection of what I have just explained. And these slides that you have questions are for you to answer in the video class. For example, what do these modal verbs express? I'm not going to give you the answer now, so I hope you give me the answer in our video class. Another one, what do these modal verbs express? So I'm not going to give you the answer now, but I want you to give it to me next class. Or this one, what do these modal express? They are very easy. If you have studied English in your life, and if you have understood what I have explained, as you have the slide in your blackboard, okay, so you can answer very easily. What do these express? And this one. And before I tell you the last slide, you know the slide is diapositiva, okay, slide, with the exercise that you have to upload to Blackboard, I would like you to have a look at this slide, because as I have been all my life teaching English and correcting exercises, these are the most common mistakes that students make. You say, I will can, they will, I told you before, I can to do that, mistake, I must to do that, I ought do, so without to, I haven't could, no he podido, so I haven't been able. And be careful too with the spelling mistakes, because it's not that you forget a T and nothing happens. If you forget a T, something can happen. For example, mustn't, normally as you don't pronounce the first T, you make mistakes and you don't put the T, and you should. Must not. If you put must not and you take the O out, probably it's easier not to make a mistake. Would, as you don't pronounce the L, you forget right the L, or might, okay? That is HT, not TH. So be careful with the spelling mistakes, because if you make a mistake like this one, this is not a silly thing, this is an important thing, okay? And this is the last slide of this unit, okay? What you have to do with this unit, with this slide, is just to answer to one of the possibilities of modals, okay? Can, could, or be able. Sometimes two answers are possible. Just do this, and I will open an activity column in your Blackboard, and what you can do is to upload this. You can copy the exercise and put it in a Word document, or you upload the complete presentation, okay, or just this slide. Answer to this one by written is the only thing I want you to do. Don't answer by written the previous ones. These ones that they were questions, is for you to answer orally in the class, but not by written. The only thing I want you to do to check that you have seen this pre-class is this slide. Do that and upload it to Blackboard. And if you have any question about modals, if you have any question about the written text, if you have any question about everything, I will see you in our video class. Remember something that probably you are going to like, is that all the time that we are recording these video classes are taken out from our video class when I see you, okay? So for example, if it's 20 minutes or half an hour, we don't have to do. We don't need to have the whole 2 hours in our class. If we have more time, if we take more time because you want to ask me things, Okay, so we stay more time, but you don't need to be the 2 hours connected. I tell you that because so you can program your life and you can program your connection. Okay, that's everything for Unit 1. So I will see you in our video class, and we will record Unit 2 for another pre-class. Thank you very much.